Well, hello, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now. Welcome back to another all-new episode of PR from the Heart's Children's Book Spotlight Series. To be precise, we have reached episode number 241. That is the 241st trolley stop here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series here at PR from the Heart as part of our summer reading season, our summer reading celebration in many respects. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager of PR from the Heart and the host of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, along with the author of the new children's book, Walking Each Other Home, Zachary's Mission, a hospice for children, published by Trolley Stop Publishing. Joined as always each and every trolley stop by my faithful furry friend and forever companion, little Forrest. He reminds me, hey, John, I'm not only your faithful furry friend and forever companion in this journey called life, but I'm also your co-host on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. We hope that if you are watching this episode in real time, that you are continuing to enjoy the summer season. And it's interesting because the summertime always gives us the opportunity to not even just recalibrate, but to really help us remember what are the most important things in life. And I feel that in many respects, we all have a mission. We all have dreams, even if it's kind of like dreams within the mission, so to speak. We're all here for an important reason or reasons, so to speak. And there's times in life where we can have fears and insecurities and doubts, just wondering if things will work out. Will our dreams be actualized? Leave it to a brand new children's book to help not only children, but also us as big kids, as adults, to know that our dreams can be self-actualized, that if we are experiencing fright in any way, shape, or form, that we can move beyond that voice of fright and to be able to move forward and really, in many respects, create a creative masterpiece. We can really enjoy this journey that is called life in many respects. So again, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to the official website of our featured guest here on episode number 241 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, rdschildrensbooks.com. You can also head on over to amazon.com and purchase and enjoy and review your copy of Rebecca's Dream That Wasn't. It's now available. One of the many ways that you can pledge your support for our featured guest here on episode number 241 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series is by leaving a 5-star review for Rebecca's Dream That Wasn't. That lets her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. The trolley always likes to rack up a lot of knowledge, especially during the summertime. Can you envision a trolley wearing sunglasses? Our trolley does that here at PR from the Heart. We travel across the country from San Diego, California, to just outside of the beautiful city of Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Joining us as our featured guest here on episode number 241 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series is one of the newest members of the PR from the Heart family, children's book author and illustrator, Ruth Don Shevlin. Ruth, we really appreciate your free time and joining little Forrest and I. Happy summer to you. And once again, let me be the first of, well, I should say not the first, but the first of many to continue to congratulate you on the launch of your new children's book. Thank you for spending some time with us here today.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
We're looking forward to our conversation. Of course, one of the many ways that you can also pledge your support for Ruth alongside us here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series and PR from the Heart, especially if there's someone in your life that is maybe wondering, will their mission, will their purpose, will their dreams come true? If they need a little bit of upliftment, we're always about sharing the love. We're always about putting more good into the world. We encourage you, if you haven't had the chance to do so, to subscribe to our official YouTube channel. Join the near 30,000 members of the PR from the Heart family, our loyal YouTube following in the process. Of course, some of the most loyal members of the PR from the Heart family share this very special trolley stop as well on your favorite social media platforms of your choosing. Again, that will really help us to be able to get Ruth's story out even more into the open. Ruth, one of the great things about children's books is that there's always two origin stories. Whenever we interview a children's author, whenever we're blessed and fortunate to interview someone on the program who's a shining star in the world of children's literature, there's always two origin stories. There's the origin story of the book. And then there is the origin story in terms of how you came into being, so to speak. One of the things that we'll talk a little bit more about is the fact that this story really took a long time. I've been in the industry for, it's now we're celebrating our 12th anniversary, I should say our 11th anniversary and going into our 12th year of service into children's authors. And I've never had the opportunity to meet and work with someone who has persevered through the years to make sure that the story came to life. But we'll talk more about the book as well. I know that there's some linking threads between your origin story and the origin story of the book, because in many respects, Rebecca's story is your story. Could you share with us, let's go into your origin story first. Could you share with us when it really all began for you, when you knew that a part of your purpose was to bring light, to bring in more inspiration into the minds and hearts of children, especially for all future aspiring dancers and performers?
Well, there's a lot of prongs to the answer because I've been writing stories since I could hold a pencil. So that part started way before I even started dance classes. So the stories came from anywhere. It could be something sitting on a table. It could be a sound I hear or a line from it didn't matter, whatever it was. And one of the things that spurred me on to these stories, I had wonderful teachers that English and words were very important. I had one teacher that she gave us assignments that was called the 10 words. And you would get 10 new words, and your assignment was to go home and write a story using all 10 words. And they didn't necessarily connect, but you had to make those words connect. That was my favorite homework. That was my I couldn't wait to go home and do that homework. And every day I waited for, are we going to have that again? Are we going to have that again? So stories have always been that kind of a thing. And then I started this dance class with Mrs. Garrett. I think I started, it was around maybe second grade. I started with her. And I was still in that class. I was just approaching 11. And when I see the video, there's a little bit of home video that my father had taken, and I'm towering over the other girls, but we're all the same age. We're all 10, 11. Maybe I'm a little closer to 11, but they are the same age as me. I look like the teacher's assistant, but I absolutely adored this teacher. And the way I described her in the book, that's her. So I went back to the video and I tried to take screenshots, but they're home videos from, well, not even home videos, home movies from 1960. So they're not, getting the screenshots it's something that I can appreciate, but I can't really use them for anything because I just look at that and go, that's my Mrs. Garrett, that's her. So, but I have such a big place in my heart for her. And then my kids were in dance, and I was also a photographer, so I was taking pictures in the dance classes. And they knew me, so they didn't pay attention to me. I was like a fly on the wall. I could get all these fabulous pictures without them having, any kind of like when somebody tells you smile for the camera, all of a sudden you turn plastic. It's a smile, but that's not you anymore. So I like to catch people without them feeling like somebody's taking a picture. And I'm just Degas with a camera to them. That's what they started calling me. I'm Degas with the camera. So when I was not able to dance anymore, I was doing that. But I was in all the classes, and I saw this over and over again with children wanting to be on the stage, and then their moment comes and they freeze, either right by the curtains or after they get on the stage or when they first find out that they're going to be on the stage. And I started thinking about my time and what happened with me and my teacher. And so this book started to develop at that period of time, that there was a lot of kids that were going through that. So I thought I'd put this together, and I did, and I'll show you the original. When I did this in 78, I think, this is what it looked like. And there was no internet, there was no fonts, so there's typewriter print right there, exactly the same size as my typewriter, and all my art is black and white. But then when I found Miriam is the time and like I said, that's 78. But I couldn't find my way from A to Z to get the book out.
Mm.
So I was selling it, giving away to the studios and the dance stores around me and little dancers like as gifts. But it wasn't until I found Miriam that I found soup to nuts. That's going to get me there. And so I brought Rebecca back out and I said, we're going to get you there. We're going to do it now. So I got it done. And then it came to illustrations. Because it was so overwhelming, so much work, I was going to have an illustrator do it.
Mhm.
And my children both were like, you can't do that. Rebecca was born before my children. So the only Rebecca they ever knew was the one that I drew.
Correct.
And so both of them were like, if you get an illustrator, the Rebecca that we know, she disappears.
Mm.
It took me 15 seconds to think about it. I said, okay, you're right. I have to do the illustrating. And I dove into something I never dreamt I would do. Um, Coming from the time that I'm 74. So I come from a time where you sent your manuscripts through the mail and you did your art with a sketch pad and a pencil and you got it done. And now I was told I have to do this digitally. And I'm not the most techie person out there. Um, and I had a lot of issues with the illustrating, but I got it done. I stumbled a lot. I still don't know what I'm doing, but I had a lot of help from Miriam's team. Any of the mistakes that I could not figure out, they magically had to disappear. I don't know what they did, but I even signed up for a class to teach me how to use that program, but I didn't have time because I had deadlines. So I didn't have time. So I haven't taken it yet. But what I do know is wherever they start that course, when I go to take the course, I'm going to go look for what's called hidden layers, and I'm going to look at that first because that's the only thing that was my nemesis through the everything. And I don't know how I got there, and I never figured out how to get out. But Miriam's team got me out.
I love the fact how and first off, just seeing the linking threads whenever we have the chance to interview someone on the program, where it's like the origin story of their children's book is really a reflection of their origin story within them.
Yes,
You know, with so much creativity out in the world of children's literature and so many books, sometimes you can just get the idea and it's maybe not necessarily inspired by a real life person or a real life experience or just real life. It could just be characters coming out of the woodwork. So,
yes, exactly.
but being able to, it sounds like, it seems like, and it feels like that the story is that much more meaningful, knowing the fact that, yes, you could have brought an illustrator on board, but it would, to a certain extent, maybe not dilute things, but it would be like you've seen this whole story through going
Right.
nearly 50 years. And so
Yes,
it's interesting. And this is a little sneak peek because, of course, if you're watching this episode in real time, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars to enjoy episode number 50 of the Neighborly Reviews bookcast, where we will be placing the spotlight on Ruth's brand new children's book, Rebecca's Dream, that wasn't in addition to Mary C. Caron's The Cottage. So David Newell, of course, who played the beloved Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We're going to be diving deeper and going further inside the pages of Rebecca's Dream that wasn't. But in many respects, like the name of the story is like a play on words for your life
yes,
because you persevered. It's very easy. I mean, there's a lot of aspiring authors that I come into contact with when I'm traveling across the country. And, you know, I have this book in me. I have this story within me. There's a but. In some way, shape, or form, there's always a but. It's a matter of I don't have the time, I don't have the energy, I don't have the resources, or you're moving through the fears of the anxieties, the worries, what's going to be happening and whatnot. And I feel that when you're given that story, it's yours to bring out into the world. I think just the way creativity works is that if you don't answer the call, someone else will answer the call and they'll create either the same story or something similar. Obviously, in life, we do have the rainbows and gumdrops, but we also have the polarity and contrast. So it's important that when we are faced with challenges, or just like Rebecca's faced with fear in the story, we have challenges, difficulties, obstacles, problems, stressors, troubles, worries. I mean, little Forrest, he communicates with me when he's moving through that. He's right on schedule, as I like to say. Specifically speaking, what were some of the challenges of note through the course of your journey? Because again, as we've already shared, Rebecca's story is your story. So what were of note, some of the specific challenges and difficulties that you experienced along the way? And what were some of the things that helped you to get through to the other side of those challenges, difficulties, obstacles, problems, stressors, troubles, worries that helped you to get through to the other side?
Well, I guess the original challenge was not met at the time because I just could not find my way before internet, before Miriam. I couldn't find my way to get it published, to get it national, to get it like real, not just a little pamphlet that I was taking around. I couldn't find my way to that. So that was the biggest challenge. And I didn't stop. I continued writing. I'm joining Miriam in July for the second one, which is also already written, but it's a script and I have to change it to a manuscript. It was a puppet show. So now I just have to change that. So I don't have challenges as far as writing is concerned because I'm busy with something else and there's a story tapping me on the shoulder. It's like you have to write this down and go take a number. There's 20 titles here on this list. You got to take a number and get on the list. So I'll write it down so I won't forget it. But there's a lot of work still, that I need to do. But the challenge is once I found Miriam, was like the illustrating, and they every time you fell, you bumped your knee, they were there to pick you up and show you, oh, no, that's the wrong way, do it this way. There was always somebody to ask a question, and she has wonderful videos for us to watch. And just, all of that was it was a learning curve. Um, I didn't feel like I needed too much on the writing side because I am writing more than enough. I had to scale it back way, way, way back, but that's okay. I'd rather put it all out. And then I do the same thing when I'm packing to go somewhere. I take everything out and then I put things back. Well, you're not probably going to wear this. I take it back. So it's the same thing, like deleting. You don't need this line. You don't need that line. But first, I just let everything on the page. But once I had Miriam, my biggest challenge was the illustrations.
Mm.
They worked out great on paper, but doing it on a program that was now digital, which is so foreign to me, was really, really difficult. But now I have another outlet for my art. So like right now I'm using the same program to turn some of those pages into coloring pages to put on the website.
Love that.
Yeah. And we're, doing some other things like that, but I just have to learn that. So it was a challenge, but it was one of those challenges that you look at it and you go, I can't do it right now, but I'm going to be able to do this. So I just have to take that class, go right to that chapter, see what is hidden layers and how do you get out of it and how do you keep from falling into it in the first place. So that was my biggest challenge, I think, with the writing, and just that it was all unfamiliar territory. So I know when I go in with the second one, it will be a little easier. I don't know about the illustrations if they'll be easier, but I should be a little better off than I was, coming in cold with something like that on my illustrations. So I think the second one will be a little easier.
And it's
But all the challenges were learning experiences. Every challenge turned out to be a learning experience.
I'm really glad that you're not even just framing it as that, but believing that, because oftentimes when we experience something that on the surface could look cumbersome or challenging, we can go into almost a victim consciousness. Like, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening now? I've got to go this way, and I have this delay or I have this challenge. But life is the greatest teacher in many respects. And knowing the fact that when you, because I had learned this through my own journeys, is that when you get the lesson of whatever the thing is that you're moving through is meant to teach you, then you can move on to the next thing. But
Exactly.
where we find ourselves is just going like this and wanting to still be in the midst and the energy of the challenge. And that's when you can find yourself getting stuck, so to speak. So just knowing the fact that, again, being able to, because I think this is important to not only teach this to kids early on, but also for adults. Because in many respects, one of the things that I've been so fortunate to hear over the years is we're going to be celebrating, I believe now, the 7-year anniversary of the Children's Book Spotlight series this fall. And there is countless parents and educators and librarians and even just people who love children's books, that maybe they have a child in their life, but it's not a child of their own. And they are in the process of reparenting / healing their own inner child.
Yeah.
And knowing the fact that, again, in life, especially into our adult years, our more formidable years, we can experience these kinds of challenges, and knowing the fact that, again, they're not permanent. If we can, process whatever it is that we're moving through, and sometimes it might take us a little bit of time, but then we can get into more of the magical part of life and just whatever that next thing may actually be. We hope that all of you, our listeners and viewers and friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, are enjoying our conversation, episode number 241 of the Children's Book Spotlight series, to be precise, with children's book author and illustrator Ruth Don Shevlin. We are almost ready to crack the cover and dive into the pages of her brand new children's book, Rebecca's Dream That Wasn't, which is published by our friends and neighbors at Miriam Laundry Publishing. One of the many ways you can pledge your support for Ruth, as we had mentioned at the onset, of course, you can head on over to her official website, which, again, we've also included in the description below to make things easier. It is rdschildrensbooks.com. You can also head on over to amazon.com if that's your favorite online vehicle of your choosing. You can leave a 5-star for Ruth, for Rebecca's Dream That Wasn't, that lets her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and, as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. If you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and they do not stock their copies of Rebecca's Dream That Wasn't, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on episode number 241 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. And of course, for all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, it's really important that we do our part to help our children right now know that their dreams can be fulfilled, whether they want to be a dancer, whether they want to be a teacher, whether they want to be a children's book author, or anywhere else in between. You can head on over to Ruth's official website and also connect with her on social media. We've included her social media platforms in the description below. You can connect with Ruth via her official social media platforms, once again, to schedule your author school visit in the process. Because, again, whether it be the back to school season, the 2025-2026 school year, or beyond, these books definitely have an infinite shelf life. And that's something where, again, like me necessarily not, I never was a dance student. I do remember my sister growing up in the Western New York. There's a very prominent dance school called Eugenia's Dance Studio. Still around. It's actually one of the top dance academies in Western New York. And I would remember, and I would go, and like there'd be all of these rehearsals, and I'd be there for like 3 and 4 hours. But it's interesting, like on the whole dance thread, like I still remember one of the competitions. I have like 2 fond memories. So one of the competitions, this shows how way back I go. But I think one of the performers was dancing to Debbie Gibson's Electric Youth or Only in My Dreams, which was like late 80s. So again, like when you've got those cool bubblegum pop songs, they make for good, dance numbers, right? And then I think there was a time where we were going to be going to, I have a little fond memory of this, where I think there was flooding in Rochester, and we weren't able to get to a dance recital, or we ended up running late. So it's just interesting how this whole dance connection, it's just like, it's like childhood memories unlocked through the course of Rebecca's Dream That Wasn't. Going inside the pages of the story, we never like to give away the whole kit and caboodle on the Children's Book Spotlight series. That means it's kind of like an old vaudevillian turn of the century kind of reference. We don't like to give away the whole story. It's very special and very meaningful because, again, as I mentioned a few times, that Rebecca's story is your story, but it's such a sweet story that children can relate to in many respects, whether you're a dancer or a performer, or you're just navigating through the journey that is childhood, the beginning of life. Could you share with us a little bit, without giving away the whole kit and caboodle, Rebecca's journey? And in many respects, she, and again, as David Newell and I will allude to in episode number 50 of the Neighborly Reviews bookcast, you can leave this open to interpretation. But Rebecca is, she's not only on a journey, but it also happens through the course of a dream as well, too. So if you can share with us a little bit more about her story in the process.
Well, this is a young girl who loves dance and has visions of her future, that she's going to be a dancer on famous theater stages with velvet curtains and fancy, beautiful tutus. And then the opportunity actually comes much sooner, because the teacher announces that they're going to have a recital. And she tells Rebecca that she wants her to play the lead part. And that's when Rebecca finds out that she's terrified of the very thing that she wants more than anything in the world. So that's the point where you have to make that decision. Do you just say, I can't do it, and run away and just let the dream sit on the floor? Or do you find a way to get over that fear and make your dream come true? So that's what she has to come up with, whether or not she's going to throw it away or overcome.
And this is
So
something, this is, again, there's so many, David and I, we literally encapsulate the story and give so many different heartfelt shares within the story. And it's interesting because, especially within your children's book, there's a universal message and anthem, but then there's messages within the message, so to speak. And one of the things, again, that I will mention, not to give away too much, between the book and between my conversation with David in episode number 50 of the Neighborly Reviews bookcast, but Rebecca has a very special relationship with her stuffies. And that is something that every child can relate to. If, let's say you want to be a public speaker, if you want to be a sportscaster, or just perform in front of an audience, right? The earliest audience that a child has is the stuffies. And I remember being, again, this is how I date myself. I don't feel like I'm old, even though I'm turning 44 in August. Again, if you're watching this episode in real time, if you're watching this in the future, I'm probably past that age. But I remember growing up, I was a huge fan of the Care Bears, and still am to a certain extent. And this is around the time where they introduced the Care Bear cousins. And so I had Bright Heart Raccoon, which is a purple fuzzy raccoon, and on his belly, he had a light bulb shaped in the form of a heart. And so whenever, I would, be talking, because growing up, I wanted to be a sportscaster. So I wanted to be a performer in some ways. Bright Heart Raccoon was my audience. So again, I can relate with Rebecca. So this is, again, like one of the things that I feel that you've really, I don't necessarily want to say cornered the market, but something you really have working to your advantage is the fact that obviously the meat and potatoes, the big audience for you is, girls who love dancing, take dance classes, those who are in, who run dance academies, and parents of dancers and things of that nature. But every single child aspires to dream, that has a goal or an ambition. So this is one of the things that I'm really loving about the fact that you're able to share your story and to really reach different people that may not necessarily, I don't want to say get your book. I mean, it's very easy to take a look at the book and say, oh, this is a book about a young dancer, and that's it. But there's so much more within it. So little
yeah.
sneak preview way of saying, enjoy episode number 50 of the Neighborly Reviews bookcast with myself and David Newell, where, of course, we have the opportunity to share Rebecca's dream that wasn't. In many respects as well, too, I'm really glad that you don't poo-poo, so to speak, the anthem of fear. Because we definitely, especially in the world in which we live in, I mean, fear is left, right. You turn on social media, you crack the newspaper, you turn on the television. Fear can be everywhere. And it's important to, fear is, it's, when I think it was introduced, this was probably around like 2010, 2011. I was already adult at that point in time. But some people refer to fear as false evidence appearing real. acronym for fear. So in essence, if you believe that fear, whatever it is, you have the opportunity to create either more of that into your reality or believe what that story is. So let's say if you feel that you're just not going to be successful in life and you believe that story, it can contribute to more of the opposite of what you want to create. I mean, you could have easily just softened it, right? You just could have swept it under the rug, which a lot of people might tend to do with fear. Why was it important for you to be able to show Rebecca facing her fear head on?
Well, first of all, I think that if I did that, it would be a disservice to the children that the book is for. Because no matter what it is that they fear, their fear is real. Even if what they're fearing is not real, their fear is real. And you have to respect that. So all of us have been there. We all know being afraid of lightning. It's not going to, you're in the house. It's raining, it's thunder and lightning. Nothing's going to happen to you. But the sound is very scary.
Mm-hmm.
Even some kids who might not respond and they have a dog that responds, they'll start responding. Like when you have babies and one child starts crying and the other one will start crying. They don't know why they're crying, but one's crying, so the next one cries. So the fear is real. And so you have to address it as that it's real. You can't send it off and like, oh, you'll be fine. They need it to be addressed. And if I would just brush it aside, then the whole purpose of the story is lost because their fear is real. If I treat it like it's not real, then I've lost them right away.
It also helps, and I'm glad that you're sharing it like this because it also helps kids to connect with courage and perseverance.
Yes.
And especially at a young age, like we moved through challenges in our own ways when we were kids. When you were a kid, when I was a kid, the world is a completely different place right now. And I
Yeah.
mean, again, it's kind of like, using a dance analogy to a certain extent, or a dance shoes analogy. You click your heels like Dorothy did in The
Right.
Wizard of Oz. You go back to when you were a child. I go back to the 80s when I was a child. But the world's an interesting place in many respects right now. So kids really need as much support and assurance. And especially for us, this is one of the things I really wanted to address during our conversation. When we provide the support for the children in our lives, they can then tap into their own inner resource
Right.
of courage, of perseverance, because ultimately that's what they have to rely on is themselves. Could you speak to that specific thread, the importance of us being mirrors for our children, for our grandchildren, for the children in our lives, for us being the mirrors for them when it comes to also practicing what we preach, that we know
Yes.
that we have the courage and perseverance, but to having that mirror effect? Why do you feel that that's really needed maybe now more than ever before?
Well, I think there's a lot more because of the internet. Another thing is that a lot of things that people wouldn't even, or children, people and of all ages, but we're talking about children, would never even be aware of. Fear of things that are out there in the world that they would never, ever have heard of before. But now we have news on 24 hours a day, and you get everything on the internet, whether it's true, it's not true. There's all kinds of things that are coming through. New kind of spider that you should be afraid of, and a new kind of snake that doesn't even live in the country on your side of the planet, but it creates a fear, the way that they tell it. And because I had that example, my parents and my aunts and uncles were Holocaust survivors.
Mm.
And my father lost everybody, and my mom had her one brother and one sister. And I watched them, and they did incredible things without having parents here uh, when they started. I was born, I think it was a year after they were married here. They got married in the DP camp as well. But whenever I had a child, a childhood challenge or a fear or something that I had to overcome, by the time, not when I was very young, because I didn't know any of that until I was about 10 or 11. But the first thought that went through my head was, if they could do that, I can do this. And I watched them, by example, what they did and how they celebrated life, and the challenges that they met and how they met them made me feel more secure that, well, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. And if they can do that, I can do this. And that carried me all the way through now. So,
And
you
this is
know,
something that, especially when it comes to courage and perseverance, it's not just when you hear those words like never give up, they're phrases, but words as well, too. Never give up, believe in yourself. It can almost seem cliche to a certain extent. And it really is a mindset. And
yes.
sometimes, and we teach our kids that sometimes they say you have to fake it until you make it. Where it's like, even through the course of my own journey and how my children's book came to form and shape, I always like to say one of the earth angels in my story, Walking Each Other Home, Zachary's Mission, a hospice for children, is Dennis, the Italian restaurant owner. He's inspired by the beloved Dennis DiPaolo, who's the owner of Elio DiPaolo's restaurant in Western New York. And when I was moving through different challenges in my life, it was almost as if Dennis lent his confidence that he had in me and say, try this on for size. And sometimes we do have to do that for our children, because eventually they get to that point where they say, if so-and-so can do it, I can do it. So
Yeah.
again, just really to be able to provide as much support and reassurance for children, but also knowing the fact that this is something that they can then have in their toolbox for the rest of their life, because
Yes.
people will come and go within their lives, but the relationship that they have with themselves will always stay the same. We're beginning to wind down our time with our featured guest here on episode number 241 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Children's book author and illustrator Ruth Don Shevlin. We are fully immersed with her brand new children's book, Rebecca's Dream That Wasn't, published by our friends and neighbors at Miriam Laundry Publishing. Again, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to Ruth's official website, which we've included in the description below, rdschildrensbooks.com. You can also head on over to amazon.com if that's your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. One of the many ways you can pledge your support by Ruth is by leaving a 5-star review for Rebecca's Dream That Wasn't, that lets you know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. And of course, if you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, they do not stock their copies of Rebecca's Dream That Wasn't. Make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on episode number 241 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. And of course, for all teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, of course, you're doing your part right now to make this not only just the best. I know we're still in the summer season right now, but sooner than we know it, it's going to be the back to school season. It's going to be the holiday season. It's going to be 2026. This is a timeless story. And the fact that it took nearly 50 years to come to form and shape, this is a story that will definitely not only inspire this generation, but next generations as well, too. So if you want to schedule your own author school visit with Ruth, you can head on over to her official website, which again is rdschildrensbooks.com, or connect with her on social media. We've included Ruth's official website and social media platforms in the description below. Being able to, the whole theme about dreams coming true, again, it's a lot of cliches in many respects, but I really feel that especially children that are coming in right now, sometimes you hear different terms to describe children. You'll hear like crystal children, indigo children, intuitives. I will say this, kids, no matter, whatever the terminology that you want to give, kids are coming into the world now knowing what it is that they want to do, even more so at early ages, maybe than what, we were growing up. It might have taken us a little bit longer of a period of time saying, when I grow up, I want to be such and such and so and so. But one of the things that we really like to do especially for the parents, for the grandparents, for the caregivers, for the educators that watch the program, when it comes to those children in our lives, what are some specific ways in which that we as parents and caregivers and custodians of our children can really help our children's dreams come true and take flight?
Well, you want to make sure that this child feels that they're in control. Again, this is from when I was a kid. My mother was always telling me that I should be a teacher, that I should be a teacher, I should be a teacher. It is what I wanted to do, but it was my mother kept saying it. And I didn't want it to be my mother's idea. I wanted it to be my idea. So I didn't do it. And I felt that's something that I'm going to be really, really careful about. I ended up teaching, but I didn't have it. I don't have a teaching certificate. I never went to school for it. But the teaching that I did, I was subbing for Montessori. I was teaching Sunday school. I was teaching in camp. I taught summer camp trick photography for 8-year-olds, for 6 to 9-year-olds. And I had so much fun, but I didn't have any of that paperwork that now that I'm retired, other people are getting checks. I'm not getting any of that. My mother was right, but I realized it has to come from the child. You're the support. You're not the one that makes the plan. So you're the support. And I just whatever you have to really listen, and you have to listen behind the words. You have to listen behind the words because what they're saying is not always the thing that they mean, or they don't have the tools yet to express what they're trying to say. So you have to, it's your child, you know them better than anybody. So listen behind the words and say things that are encouraging, say things that keep them safe. You know, if you get a kid that tells you they want to be a stunt a stunt performer, that's not something that you're necessarily going to want to encourage, but you also don't want to shoot them down right away.
True.
So you have to find that fine line in the middle there. But you just have to listen to what they're saying. What is it that they're afraid of? So if they want to do something and are they asking for guidance how to get there? Are they hesitating because there's something in the way that they're afraid of between them and their goal, like me with the dance? There was something in the way. Didn't know that it was that way until somebody said, here's your opportunity. Here it is. It's in your hands. And then I went, oh, I'm scared to death of this thing that I love and I want. So you really just have to pay attention and listen to what they're saying, not what you are interpreting as an adult, but get into the mind of the child. What's behind the words? What are they saying to you? And then you can be encouraging and you can give them, I had when I was teaching in camp, I had kids that I was teaching them to swim. And I would hear, I can't do that. I can't dive. I can't, I can't, I can't. And I said, you can't yet. You can't yet. Tell me again after the day is over what you can and can't do, because it's going to be very different. You have to learn it first, then you can. Of course you can't now. There was a time you couldn't walk. There was a time you couldn't talk, but you learned how, and now you do them both perfectly well. Why not swimming? You can do that too.
That's something that I really these are really great nuggets that you're sharing with all of us. The fact that, again, it's like I always do my part whenever I have a children's book spotlight series episode to really listen intently, because again, it's you can't yet. And I think that many of us, especially of a certain age, it's a matter of we've been programmed for a long period of time. I think this is just society in general to say you can't, or it's going to be too challenging. And we believe that story.
Right.
In many respects, there's maybe someone, maybe a teacher who really didn't like us, or maybe just, we could just pick up something that even a teacher maybe implied, and maybe they didn't necessarily say, you're not creative, but maybe our childhood brain mistook it as that. And then from there, we ran the story in the back of our mind that we're not talented, we're not creative, we're not going to amount to much. So we encourage not even just the children in your lives, but especially for adults, because you'd be surprised the number of parents that I've talked to over the years, both parents, caregivers, educators, even those who don't have children, have come up to me and said, I'm doing my part to heal the relationship with my inner child, or I'm doing my part to reparent myself so I can be a better mom or dad to, little Billy or little Susie, right?
Yeah.
Knowing the fact that you can't ... yet. It's a
Right.
really good way of believing that, because it is very true as well.
It acknowledges that they can't. We know you can't. You can't ride a bicycle yet, but we're going to teach you this afternoon. And by tomorrow or by next week, you can take off the training wheels. And then you can say, I can. And I had one teacher, this was brilliant and stayed with me forever. When you say things to yourself that you might not be talking about yourself, you might be talking about somebody else. I can't stand that. I can't stand that. She said, what your body is hearing, what your brain is hearing is, I can't stand. You're giving yourself something that's going to happen later in life. You're telling yourself that you can't stand. So again, it's a negative. You're feeding yourself a negative that can eventually turn into a physical thing. So I always found that extremely interesting, and I paid good. I don't know if that's true, but it sounds like it could be. So I paid attention to that, and I stopped using phrases like that.
One of the things that you really are in many respects, Ruth, is an inspiration, because there are many people out there that get to a certain age and they say, because I am such and such age, I can't do this, I can't do that. One of the brightest shining stars in the world of children's literature, who we had the opportunity to work with, is an amazing children's author. She's the creator of the Kid and the Dog series, Dorinda Doyle. And she's a loving grandmother on her end of things. I think when she wrote her first book, I think she might have been in her 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And just it's so, you're providing inspiration for, whether it be, someone who's, entering into the golden age years of their life. They may want to write a children's book. They may want to open up a business. They may just want to do something different, so to speak. What would be some words of encouragement and support for those people who have told themselves that they can't, and now it's fast forward and they're 60, 65, 70, 75, and they're wondering, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Can I still do what I wanted to do 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
Mhm.
You're shining proof of the fact that it took 50 years for Rebecca's dream that wasn't to come to form and shape, but it's now come to form and shape. So what
Right.
would be your words of support and encouragement that you'd like to share?
Well, firstly, what have you got to lose? If it doesn't work out, then you were right. But if you don't do it, you'll never know. And sometimes that's just an excuse to like give you an out that, oh, well, I can't do it because this, or I can't do it because that. But those reasons aren't really the thing. It's that fear that either it's not going to be successful, or they have negative ideas about what they can accomplish. But what have you got to lose by trying? If it doesn't work, then you didn't lose anything. So you still need to have enough encouragement for yourself and belief in yourself that you had this thing that you wanted to do. And again, it's just like Rebecca, you're going to throw it away. This is your last shot at it. So what have you got to lose? Give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work out.
And this is something that it goes back to, and I think David Newell and I, we mention this regularly on the Neighborly Reviews bookcast, but we specifically mention it on episode number 50, when we had the chance to share and review and spotlight Rebecca's Dream. That wasn't, Fred had a song, and the anthem of the song was, "You've got to do it." Because again, there's also times where we just say we're gonna do something, right? And I think that Nike coined the market on this when they said just do it. That
Do it.
eventually, and as you said, like if you try it and for whatever reason it's not meant to be, or it's whatever, then that at least you can close that loop. You
Right.
can close that door, so to speak. Um, One of the fastest growing endorsements in the world of children's literature is something similar to, yet slightly different from, when the late movie critic duo Siskel and Ebert, when they loved a film in the 80s and 90s, they gave it 2 thumbs up. Well, little Forrest, my pride and joy, he always likes to contribute to every children's book spotlight series episode, especially if he finds an alignment with the children's book that we are sharing and an author that we're interviewing. I had the chance to be able to, it's kind of like story time with Mr. John and Little Forrest. Oftentimes, And so little Forrest proudly gives 2 paws up for Rebecca's dream that wasn't. That is one of the fastest growing endorsements in the world of children's literature. So thank you, little Forrest, as always, for
Thank you, Forrest.
contributions to this episode of the Children's Book Spotlight series. We always close out every episode of the program in 2 specific ways, shapes, and forms. And in many respects, we remember the spirit, we remember the legacy, we still feel his presence in many respects of the late Fred Rogers. And in many respects, when he navigated through life, not even just on episodes of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, when he talked at college commencement speeches, whenever he communicated with children in hospitals and he visited sick kids, whenever he just talked with regular people, when he crisscrossed the country. Most notably, he shared this before he received his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Daytime Emmy shortly before he passed from stomach cancer. He always reminded us, and he always kept the time, Ruth, whether it be 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or a full minute, he encouraged us to remember those who helped love us into being. And that was his way of saying, remember those people along our path who inspired us to never give up on our dreams, the real life stuffies of the world.
Yes.
So who are some of the people that you would like to publicly recognize here on episode number 241 of the Children's Book Spotlight series that have helped love you, Ruth Don Shevlin, into being?
Well, the first two would have to be my parents. They were incredible people, and what they endured at the age of 14 and 15 until they got here at the age of 20 was just overwhelming. I can't imagine it. And I spent a lot of time in my later teen years, like the more I learned about what they had gone through. If I was sitting on a train, the sound of the tracks changed to me. It was a different kind of a train. The word camp had 2 meanings. All of those kind of things would go through my head, and I would wonder if I would be able to do what they did. And with all of what they went through, they gave us such a beautiful childhood. They gave us such a magnificent childhood. And I realized later that even my very first, somebody, I think it was Miriam, somewhere on Facebook, they were asking about what our favorite childhood book was when we were children. And the very first book that my mother was reading to me, I don't remember what it doesn't have like a title. It was a one book. It was about this thick, and it had stories and poetry and ballads and funny poems. It was wonderful. And every night, it was a whole library in one book. And I didn't know at the time that my mother was reading me these stories. She was teaching herself English while she was reading those stories to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I just see all of these things that kind of the sacrifices that were made for us. At that time, it was only me. I was the oldest, and we lived on top of my uncle's butcher shop for a while. So there were a lot of sacrifices that were made, and the things that they overcome just to make a better life for us, for me, and then my brother, and then my 2 sisters. But in the beginning, it was just me, and I still have that book. I'm 74 years old, and I still have that book. It's one of the few things because all my toys went down to my siblings, and by the time I got to the last one, it wasn't coming back in one piece. But the book I still have, and it's one of my treasures. My aunts and uncles, I felt often that we were kind of raised in a commune. But like if my uncle disciplined me, that stood. That was okay. So I looked at it that we were 9 kids with 6 parents. That's how it felt. And all of them were there for us and sacrificed for us and what they could do for us. The teachers, Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Washington, one of my, oddly that her name is Washington, but she was my history teacher. And when she told us about Washington's Crossing, which is 40 minutes from here, I was just there 2 weeks ago, she had you on the boat with him. You were there. You were on that boat. And to this day, history is just so thrilling to me. And I live in Philly, so there's plenty of it here, all around me. is all kinds of history. So we were just there 2 weeks ago. I climbed the tower, and you could see over the Delaware and imagine that this is where he crossed. Maybe a little further down the river, but you're looking at it, and you can imagine the whole scene. Or you walk into, if you go to Valley Forge, they have the original tent that George Washington, his tent from the Revolutionary War. They have that there, and it's just thrilling to be in there. So I gained that from teachers that and the other teachers that taught me writing, that taught me a love for poetry. There was one teacher, we had a big poster, and you got a new poem every week, and everybody got one, and then you had to stand up and recite it. So it was two teachers, they were sisters, and one had a love for music, and in that class they all had instruments. In my class it was all poetry and stories and writing, and they just further made the fire a little higher underneath that, what was already there, because I was already writing stories. And then friends that were encouraging, and strangers too. And then along the way, when I finally found Miriam, every single person on that team and everybody in the group that I was in, everybody encouraging each other and helping us over each hurdle. So there's a lot of people that I can't even, after we are off of here, I'll say, oh, I didn't say that one. Kind of like the Academy Awards.
Yep.
You don't have.
Well, it's long since been said, and I'll paraphrase what Fred had shared over the years, but it's long since been said that whether those individuals are near or far, whether they're still with us walking this earthly plane or watching down from heaven, that they're shining, that they're smiling on you, knowing the indelible impact that you're making right now, not only on children but also parents, families, educators, and really everyone that your life is touching, the paths of those lives who you are connecting with in the process. And in addition to being huge Mr. Rogers buffs, we're also huge Disney buffs here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series. There's something about the Disney magic where it really does, and again, it may sound cliche, but whenever you watch a Disney movie, if you go to, like, you watch Cinderella, right? Or you watch Aladdin, especially, put a pin in that momentarily, we're always inspired to know that our dreams can come true. So we have the ability to bring to form and shape, inspired by the Disney magic, we have the ability to bring to form and shape our dreams, our desires, our goals, our ambitions. We can fulfill our own wishes. And thus we have the opportunity to do that for those people who come into our lives, whether it be our children, our family, our friends, our loved ones, our fellow neighbors, those whom we're blessed to be of service to. We go back to the year 1992. It was a great year. We go back to, we remember, I should say, the late Robin Williams, who voiced the genie of the lamp in Disney's beloved animated classic Aladdin. Little tip of the cap to that, we have our official segment called Three Wishes. So we have a genie lamp, tried and true, wherever we go. It's been with us since day one here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series. So Ruth, you are being given three wishes. You've given freely to children, parents, families, educators in different iterations over the years. And now, of course, in your work as a children's book author and illustrator. So it's your time to receive. Now, for your three wishes, I think the only automatic disqualifiers, according to the genie of the lamp, one, you can't make someone fall in love with you. That has to happen organically. And then two, you can't ask for more wishes. Those are the automatic disqualifiers. But these wishes, they can be for yourself, they can be for the children of the world, or they can be for the world at large. What would your three wishes be?
Well, I think the biggest one right now would be to have a more peaceful kind of a world. There is so much, not just unrest, but a meanness that's taken over a lot of places, a lot of people. There's a meanness instead of kindness. And I would like to see the kindness replace the meanness. Um, I would like for children and for adults who feel shaky confidence to move forward. And I think that's really important. A lot of people are stuck. And if you can't get off your square, if you never move, you might as well be a tree. You'll be beautiful, but you won't see anything but what you see right now. So you have to be able to get off your square. And if you can't, if you, that would be the thing, confidence for the second one. And the third one is, I think it's as important. I think even Einstein said this, that imagination is more important than knowledge.
Mm.
And that will take you so far. Your imagination can take you to places that your knowledge may be limited at different times of your life. You may say, I really like to learn more about that. And then you have more knowledge on that. But your imagination is infinite. And your imagination can also lead you to the things that you find an interest in. And then you go find the knowledge that goes with the imagination. But I would love for everybody to have that and an outlet for it.
And it's also long since been said, and thank you for sharing those wishes. It's long since been said that when one's wishes come from one's heart, they have a greater chance of coming true. When we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go, but fear not, there are many more magical trolley stops to come on the Children's Book Spotlight series. But first things first, raise your hand if you have had fun on episode number 240.
Oh, both, yes.
Series. Hands up from Ruth, hands up from myself, paws up from little fours, as we like to say, and of course, hands up from the little ones on screen. As we like to say, that means mission accomplished, job well done. Again, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to Ruth's official website, which once again, we've included in the description below, rdschildrensbooks.com. You can also stay connected with Ruth on social media. We've included her social media platforms in the description below. Keep the conversation going post Children's Book Spotlight series. Again, you can head on over to Amazon.com if that's your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. You can read and enjoy your copy of Rebecca's Dream That Wasn't while on Amazon, of course, if that's your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. And if you feel aligned in doing so, leave a 5-star review. That lets Ruth know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. If you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and they do not stock their copies of Rebecca's Dream That Wasn't, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on episode number 241 of the Children's Book Spotlight series as part of our summer reading season, our summer reading celebration in many respects. And of course, to all educators out there, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, for all of your students who aspire to be performers in their own way, whether it be performers in the classroom, but to really at the same point in time be their authentic selves in life. You can connect with Ruth via her official website to schedule your very own author school visit, not only for the back to school season, but the entire 2025-2026 school year and beyond. But as I mentioned, many more magical trolley stops to come. We are approaching a milestone, which is the 250th episode of the Children's Book Spotlight series. And shortly after that, we'll be celebrating our 7-year anniversary celebration on top of that. We are very fortunate to be one of the most popular, longest running children's book podcasts in the world of children's literature in the kid lit community, to be able to interview prominent celebrities, New York Times bestsellers, and the top award-winning and best-selling children's authors and illustrators. And of course, for those authors whose journeys are just taking flight as well, too. So if you are a children's author and would love to share your inspiring story here on the Children's Book Spotlight series, just as Ruth did here today, you can head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com, or connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen. Instagram, Facebook, X, all at PR From The Heart. A little sneak preview, of course. If you're watching this episode in real time, it's actually available. Episode number 50 of the Neighborly Reviews bookcast, where David Newell, of course, you remember him and you love him as the beloved Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We know him and we love him as David Newell. David and I take the time to crack the cover and dive into the pages of Rebecca's Dream That Wasn't, in addition to Mary C. Caron's The Cottage. It's a beautiful A and B side for the summer reading season. So again, you can, of course, enjoy episode number 50 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. That being said as well, if you are a children's author and would love for David and I to deliver a heartfelt review of your brand new children's book on a forthcoming edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, you know where to connect with us via our official website and social media platforms. And of course, as I mentioned, many children's authors' journeys are taking flight. Leading into the back to school season, leading into the holiday season, we have been very blessed to be of service to some of the top names in the world of children's literature, ranging from celebrities such as Sharon, Lois, and Bram, the iconic creators of Skinamarink. Skinamarinky dinky dink, Skinamarinky doo, we love you, ranging to John Parra, to Catherine Roy, who I still feel will be winning a Caldecott at some point in time very soon. Again, to those children's authors whose journeys are just beginning. We are now going to be celebrating this summer our 11th anniversary, which is hard to believe, and heading into our 12th year of being of service to children's authors across the US, Canada, and around the world. If you are a children's author and are seeking dedicated PR publicity support to be able to create a book media tour in a city of your choosing or a national book media tour, head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com. Schedule your courtesy connection call. Let us see how we can be of service to you. And of course, stay connected to PR from the Heart's official social media platforms for more details on Ruth's national book tour as well, too. See, everything always comes full circle here on PR from the Heart. One final time, Rebecca's Dream That Wasn't, it is now available. Head on over to Amazon.com. Leave that 5-star review if you feel guided and inclined to do so. For all educators, of course, out there, feel free to connect with Ruth to schedule your very own author school visit. And of course, you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstores. We like to say here at PR from the Heart, those are the pillars of our community. If they do not stock their copies of Rebecca's Dream That Wasn't, make that kind recommendation and let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. But the trolley has been very patient. It is ready to go. But again, there are more magical trolley stops to come. So we want to thank you for your continued support of PR from the Heart. But before we officially put the bow on this episode of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, once again, we feel the presence, we feel the spirit of Fred Rogers. Did you know that Fred Rogers weighed 143 pounds throughout his entire natural adult life? You might be wondering, little Forrest, Ruth, John, why are you bringing this as you are exiting stage left, in the immortal words of the beloved cartoon Snagglepuss? Well, there's a reason why we mention that. Fred Rogers knew exactly what he was doing when he was walking this earthly plane. There's 1 letter in I, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. Fred reminded us of our inherent worth and our inherent value. He reminded us how loved and how special that we are. So it's a little tip of the cap to Fred Rogers. And as little Forrest was kind enough to spend some quality time with us here today, in addition to Ruth, and as a little tip of the cap to Fred Rogers, whose memory that we continue to remember and whose legacy we continue to honor in the process, we share our favorite 3 numbers as we close out episode number 241 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, 243, because there's 2 letters in we, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. That is our reminder that we see you, that we like you just the way that you are, but not only that, that we see your inherent worth, we see your inherent value. We see the fact that you have skills and gifts and talents and dreams beyond words can describe. And you will fulfill those dreams. You will fulfill your mission. But it's always important to know that you're loved, that you're special, that you're whole, that you're healthy, that you're complete, that we like you, that we love you just the way that you are. So we want to thank you for your continued support of PR from the Heart, for your continued support of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, for your continued support of children's authors and illustrators across the country and around the world, such as Ruth, who are doing, again, wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and those who love great children's books, for the pillars of our community, local libraries and children's and independent bookstores. But above all else, we want to thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. We look forward to seeing all of you once again very soon for another trolley stop here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Take good care. And again, thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Goodbye for now.